Hey guys, what's up? This is Bharat. You're watching iGyan, and it's time to review the new Motorola G6. Let's quickly get started. So Motorola has launched the G6 in India, finally so, but it's quite late from the global launch, and they haven't launched their flagship, the Moto G6 Plus, at least the flagship for this series. The company did launch the Moto G6 Play and the Moto G6, and the Moto G6 is the one that we're going to be reviewing today. So Motorola has gone through a few paces in the last many years. It's been acquired by many companies, gone from one company to the other, and it has gone through several design changes, several strategy changes, and several name changes. Sometimes they call their phones Moto by Lenovo, sometimes they decide to call it Motorola. But the one thing that was consistent with Motorola devices and Moto phones was the stock Android capability and quick software updates. But a few things have changed in the past years, and this phone will sort of address the changes, but will also define the changes for the company going forward. Now, there are a few things that right off the bat I do not like about the phone, and I'm going to talk about those in this review to start with. First of all, the phone has a Qualcomm Snapdragon 450 chipset. This in on itself is quite a bit of a letdown, and that too because of the fact that the phone starts at $13,999. At that price, it's a pretty expensive phone, and the 64GB variant goes up to $15,999. So as far as the chipset versus price comparison goes, the device is definitely more expensive than it should have been, and that unfortunately is a letdown. One more thing that I didn't like about the device, again from the get-go, is that they've changed their strategy as far as Android as an operating system is concerned. Where Motorola was supposed to be the phone running the purest and the most stock version of Android, this time around the company has added a few apps that I would call bloatware, that I would call apps that not everyone needs, and that is something that changes the perception of Motorola as a brand. We haven't seen Moto sending out software updates in a timely manner, and this also shows that the company is changing from the quickest software update provider to being one of the slowest in the market, where their software updates for at least Android Oreo didn't start appearing up until January of 2018, versus in the good old days with the Moto G3 and the G4, they would switch out Android updates almost within a month of the official announcement from Google. That being said, let's talk about the rest of the things of the phone and some of the things that I really like about the device, and let's get started with the remaining review. So as far as build quality and design is concerned, the Moto G6 is a pretty fantastic looking phone. On the back you see this really nice glass back, which does have Gorilla Glass 3 in it, and it does have curved edges, which makes it extremely premium in terms of not only the way it looks but also the way it feels. It almost in design mimics the Moto X4, which is one of their most good-looking devices in the market today. Of course, the Moto X will also get an upgrade to Moto X5 hopefully later this year, but this time around the Moto G6 seems to have taken that design pattern and added it to itself to give it a really good look. Now, a lot of people pointed this out, and I noticed it myself. The rear camera placement and the flash also make it look like an emoji. Now, whether you like this placement or not, it looks quite good. You do have a camera bump which will only go away if you pop on a cover, which in our case was not included in the box. So in India, the cover is not included in the box, but you will be able to buy third-party accessories for this device quite easily. Now, the one thing I do like is the fact that they did switch to a USB Type-C port on this device, and the 3.5mm headphone jack does come with Dolby Audio. So the overall audio experience using 3.5mm headphone jacks is fantastic. The speakerphone is placed in the earpiece, and due to that, it's not the loudest speakerphone. I'm used to Motorola putting in two speakers to give it a stereo sound, and where companies are trying to do that more and more, in the Moto G6 you do continue to get only the earpiece speaker. There are instances where the speakerphone will light up. So if you're listening to, say, a voice note using the earpiece with the phone to your ear and your phone suddenly rings, it will ring at full volume, basically deafening you completely. So these are things that do come into play when you are using the speakerphone and the earpiece as the same speaker. Again, the Dolby Audio comes in handy if you're listening to music or watching videos on the phone using the speaker. But like I said, a stereo setup is always better than a mono setup. So right off the bat for our phone, we did get a few software updates, but I'm assuming that those were the pre-release updates and the final version will not get that. Some of these updates really fixed a lot of things. We had some issues with the camera. All of those seem to have been fixed with the software updates. Now the camera at the back does do some of the cool things that Motorola cameras do. So you do have selective focus, you do have selective color, and you do have the ability to replace backgrounds, all of those things, something that really works on Motorola devices, and it works quite well on this phone. Some of the images that we got from the device, especially in low light environments, come out really well. So as far as the cameras are concerned, even though the chipset is not the most powerful chipset and the ISP on the Snapdragon 450 is not the best, some of the software capabilities that Motorola has added with the Moto G6 will result in a good end user experience for the photography. Now, as far as video is concerned, like I mentioned, it does have electronic image stabilization in video, which works really well in well-lit environment. So if you're outdoors on and about in sunlight and you want to capture video, you'll get good electronically stabilized video. But if you're indoors and in low light environments, this video becomes jerky and digital, and you can see the glitches in the video if you're shooting this in an indoor environment. For a price of about 15,000 rupees, I was expecting at least 4K video from the phone, but in this case, you're only restricted to 1080p. Now, of course, the camera UI is completely different from what we've seen from Motorola in the past, and this seems to be more a stock Google camera interface with some customizations done by Moto, some new abilities that have been added over to the left in the features, but more or less completely stock as far as user interface is concerned. Even the Photos app, you can do things like replace backgrounds like I mentioned. It's relatively easy to do. You do have to use the cutout feature, and you do have a spot color feature which allows you to do all of those things. You do not have a depth mode anymore, but you do have a portrait mode which will allow you to take those depth shots. Again, you can go into the editor and edit out these portrait shots. You can get selective focus, or you can get selective black and white, so you can decide to keep one area of the photograph in focus and in color while the other area becomes black and white. Features like these are fun and nifty and work really well on the device, so no complaints with the camera or the camera software. It seems to completely remove those laggy issues that we had last year. It continues to be a smooth camera operation from the device. A question that I did get from a lot of people about the Moto G6 is whether it has all the required sensors, and yes, it does. It does have a magnetometer, it does have a gyroscope, it does have a compass, it has all of those things you would need from the device. In 2018, I shouldn't even need to discuss these things with people, but because Motorola has missed out on some of these sensors in the past, it was a pretty common question, and it does not miss out on any important sensor that you would require for your day-to-day usage in the device. Another thing to mention is that the fingerprint sensor is really good, and if you do use one button navigation for this device, you'll quite get used to it and only use that for your main navigation. Also, the face unlock works really well, and we found it to work even in low light environments. Of course, it doesn't work in pitch dark, but it does work really well, and it's quite snappy and responsive to unlock the device. You also continue to get all your Moto actions and features. A lot of people are already used to this. So there are some people who like to use the chop to flash, and also the double twist to launch the camera. These are features that you get used to again and start to use more and more once you start using the device. The phone also does have Moto display, so you can approach the device once it's locked. Just like wave your hand on the screen and you start to see what notifications you've got, what the time is, etc., without touching the phone or without doing anything to the device. So you can just wave your hand across the screen and you'll get that information. Now, when it comes to performance, the phone can handle day-to-day tasks. You can run through the device, use it quite normally. Again, despite being the 450 processor, your day-to-day usage is pretty good, and that's because inherently the user interface is more or less stock. Even though there are some pre-installed applications, the UI in itself and the operating system in itself is completely stock Android, and that allows you to get a good overall usage experience from the device. Those who are interested in things like benchmarks, you'll see that an Antutu score of an 70 or 72,000 is on average is what we got from the device, and also similar results from Geekbench when compared to devices in the similar price bracket. We did manage to play games on this device without any problem. So for games like Asphalt 8, it ran on full graphics and we didn't find any issues playing those games. What I was surprised at is that when we were playing PUBG, it automatically went to the low graphics, which is what I did expect the game to do. But then the game was quite playable and it was quite responsive and a lot of fun to play with and a lot of fun to play on this device. So the speaker remains loud, the touch screen and the overall response from the game was pretty good. And like I said, some of the games, they will run on low graphics, but it does not hinder the gaming experience. If you do want a more powerhouse gaming experience, of course, this phone is not for it. And the Moto G6 Plus may be the device that you're looking for, or several other devices that are available in this price bracket. Now let's talk about phone call capability. Now the Moto G6 also does a really good job of noise cancellation. It does have several microphones, including the one microphone on the back that I did notice in the unboxing video. It does allow for a really good voice call experience, and the speakerphone is really loud. Because it is also a speakerphone, the earpiece volume is really loud and it's really good for phone calls, especially if you have poor network situations. The earpiece, because it's so loud, will help you recover some of that voice call quality. The microphone also is good. Like I said, noise cancellation is good on the other end, on the receiving end of the phone call as well. So all in all, a really good phone and voice call experience from this device. It does have a 3000 milliamp hour battery, which in my experience lasted a full day without any issues. Also because the chipset is not that battery heavy, we got a good full day of use with about 6.5 hours of screen on time. There is also a 15 watt turbo power charger included, which will quickly, or rapidly as they call it, charge up your device, and it charges up rather quickly as well. There is also another aspect that I wanted to discuss is the front-facing camera. Now, even though the phone is using stock Android and a complete Google experience, the front-facing camera does not have a portrait mode, even though they could have tapped into Google's APIs for a Google sort of AI-powered portrait mode for the front-facing camera. You do have a beautify mode or a face beauty mode. You do have a front-facing flash mode. You do have active photos or live photos, something that is also there in the rear-facing camera. And you also do have HDR. You also have things like face filters, which I also checked out in my unboxing video, but they work well. And you also have, interestingly, time-lapse video for the front-facing camera, but you do not have portrait modes on the front-facing camera, which in itself is somewhat of a letdown because portrait mode for the front-facing camera is something that people have really started to use now and is something that they really expect from their devices and is something that is missing from the G6. Hopefully they can easily add it with a software update, and users of this can then be more happy with their phone. But for now, as far as performance, build quality, design, all of those things go, the phone seems to do really well. Like I said, I'm slightly disappointed about some of the features. The price definitely is much more than it should have been of the phone, and I'm not happy with the Snapdragon 450 chipset being in there. It will bring down the performance of your games, it will bring down the performance of many applications that you may use, but in day-to-day usage, it does not seem to impact the phone as much, also because it's a pure stock install, apart from some of the few bloatware applications that they do include on this device. That's it for our review, guys. If you liked it, don't forget to smash that like button, hit that subscribe button if you're not already a part of Team iGyan. This has been Bharat. I will see you guys in the next one.